Hey everyone, Mishi Mavros here, and today, as per request, I'm going to discuss BPD and breakups. Quite a few people have been asking me to kind of shed some light on this topic and why it is different than just a regular breakup and why it is, so much more traumatizing. And it can take us a very long time to get back to the same, normal, as if BPD is ever really normal. But why it is just so much more. Just tears us apart. And this can happen to anyone, and breakups can be very, very difficult in general. If that person was your everything, that person was the only thing making you like happy, it is very hard. It's very difficult. So with borderline personality disorder, you can imagine just the extent, the heightened emotions of everything. It just makes us crash, and it can take many, many months, if not years, to kind of get over that one person, if they were your everything. And, with BPD, you don't usually have as many strong friendships, as many strong relationships. Those connections can usually only come from that one person, that favorite person. So when that favorite person is now gone, it can really eat at us. It can really, really just make life not worth living anymore. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. In terms of relationships, I've kind of discussed that it can be very rocky, splitting on someone and devaluing someone. It can happen to anyone, but I feel like especially those romantic relationships really suffer that back and forth, that black and white. And I think that, with having a healthy relationship, even when you break up with someone, it will take a couple of months to get over. If you've been with someone for a long period of time, you do kind of have those support systems though in place that we don't necessarily have when we have BPD. And if we're not currently in therapy, we may not have those coping mechanisms in place to be able to function and be able to kind of pull us out of that dark time. So breakups can be many different reasons. There's never only one reason why someone would break up with someone, or there's not always the reasonable excuse or the reasonable situation that someone is in that causes someone to break up with us or us with them. When you have BPD, you may be looking at it differently than what is actually happening, what is actually taking place. We might account and remember things differently. I don't know if you guys remember, but I talked a lot about memory one time, and I wasn't sure if it was like a BPD trait, but I think it definitely is, judging by the amount of people that were like, okay, yeah, I definitely struggle with memory loss quite a bit. And it's in those situations where things just got so out of hand, things just got so crazy, that we weren't able to really be conscious in the moment. We weren't really able to make decisions for ourselves. We kind of let the BPD take over, and that's when the rage and the abandonment issues become so prominent that we are then, we kind of just let that take over, and we're not really in control of anything. And I think that's why therapy is so important, because we do learn those coping mechanisms, and we learn how to better control those emotions and how to kind of step away if we feel that it is kind of coming on. Being in a state of mind where you can sense that it's coming and be able to remove yourself from the situation before it happens. So I find a lot of breakups when you have BPD are kind of centered around either you losing it and that person leaving, or just being so fed up and just so done with it that you end up breaking up with that person, and then you don't always get to come back from that. I find that in all my relationships, I have always been the one to break up with that person. But it definitely is usually from just like an explosion of like, I can't take this anymore, I'm leaving and I'm never coming back, I'm breaking up with you. And it just kind of stuck like that. And I don't regret necessarily breaking up with any of my previous relationships. I think that it definitely was in both of our best interests. I have never really had a healthy relationship until the one I'm in now. So I mean, it definitely was a good idea, but the way that it was handled was definitely not, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't, the way that should Like, I should have dealt with it. Even if I did want to break up with that person, it should have been in a different setting. It should have been, talked about a little bit better. I feel like a lot of fights and stuff like that were just happening, and it was always yelling matches. It was always like screaming. It was always insulting. And in relationships with BPD, I find that, we tend to gravitate towards people that are either, narcissists or are either codependent themselves. And that can kind of lead to problems on its own. We obviously have our own problems going into it. And then if that person has their own set of problems as well, it's just kind of a big mesh of the fucking disaster. So finding someone, of course, that is healthy and functional is obviously ideal, but it can be seemingly impossible. I mean, like, it's not like someone that's healthy and normal is going to want to deal with someone such as ourselves that just has all this baggage. That's not to say that, though, we are, of course, deserving of love, because everyone is. It's just that sometimes we need to realize as well that we could be the problem. And, a lot of times we are the problem. And it's also hard for me because I know this is not normal, this is not healthy, but I remember situations as like, that person did stuff to me. That's the reason that this relationship went sour. It's pretty much all that person that fucked everything up. And I don't really remember the things that I was doing that, obviously caused some upset or, caused them to do the things that they did. I'm only thinking about like, well, they caused me to do that, or, they did that, and that's not right. So we gotta kind of also remember what it is that we're doing, because otherwise then things are just gonna repeat themselves. But with breakups, it can cause a person to go into such a depression that it becomes impossible to get out of, seemingly. And then in the future, that can kind of, deter us from, wanting the best for ourselves, wanting to get help, because we feel like we don't deserve it. And then, there's probably no one pushing us to do it. So, it's hard to explain because, again, with the memory loss, it's hard to, recall these certain events that have caused these situations in my life, like, again, like what I was saying, I only remember what they were doing. So when people ask me, oh, why did you and that person break up? I'm like, oh, because they're a dick, like they're an asshole, like they did this to me, they cheated on me. But in reality, if I think about it logically, I was definitely also a source of a lot of the problems, with the pushing and pulling, the abandonment issues, the, probably not letting them have as much freedom as they wanted to. But then again, also when you get cheated on, you don't want to give them that freedom because you're afraid that they're going to cheat on you again. And then cutting off all your other relationships for that person is also really unhealthy. So then eventually one day when you do break up, you don't really have anyone because you chose that one person over everyone else because they were your favorite person. And then when you do break up, that's why the depression is so much worse, because you may not have anyone to kind of talk to you, to kind of help you through it. And then that's when the impulsive behaviors can then also become more prominent as well. Substance abuse, even if you had gone a long period of time without using substances or without doing that impulsive thing, this can kind of push you towards that, or this can kind of push you to feeling so worthless that, you get that suicidal behavior again. Rage at oneself, just kind of pleading to get that person back, even though it's probably not the best idea. You become so desperate to be, you don't want to be alone. So, even if that person is not right for you at all, it seems better than being alone. Just that fear of being alone is so terrifying. You'd rather be with this potentially verbally abusive, physically abusive, narcissistic person. But this step towards recovery would be obviously learning to be comfortable in one's skin, feeling that you are worth it enough to be alone, and finding comfort in yourself, and finding enough hobbies and enjoyment that you don't need to surround yourself with such negative energy or around such negative people that aren't helping you grow. So that's kind of a little bit to do with borderline personality disorder and breakups, and why it is so catastrophic, it seems, and why these breakups occur, what keeps us from remaining healthy, and what keeps us from being able to grow within ourselves. And also, you know, we can be the ones that are stopping people from growing themselves. So sometimes it's also good to take a step back and realize what you could have been doing in that situation that was wrong, and, you know, trying to better yourself so that you can eventually move forward and find a relationship that is going to help you flourish. So thank you guys so much for watching. And I will be back next time with another video. Thanks. Bye.